थोड़ा सा ये बताना कि अब कर क्या रहे हैं, किस तरह वहां पहुंचे और आगे किधर को जा रहे हैं. And then we'll come back to some probes within that. Angela, if we can start with you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Pari, and thank you for inviting us. So I'm really happy to be here. Is my voice fine? Is my video fine?
जी बिल्कुल.
Okay, so I'll just start. So, जिस तरह उन्होंने कहा, I am just at the start of my PhD at Umass Amherst. My PhD is in math, science, and learning technologies. So this is housed within the Department of Education, and it's essentially education technology applied specifically to math and science education. I'm very lucky to be working with somebody who is completely interdisciplinary the way I am. So my supervisor is someone who has a computer science background academically, but then did her PhD in cognitive science and its application to education. So what she's working on and what my main project is primarily is wearable educational technology, how we can use that to build games in which students can create their own games and then play those games. And the beauty of it is that, you know, when we think of EdTech in Pakistan, because in my MPhil I did a lot of work in education technology, what we think of is screen ke samne bacche ko bitha dena hai, ek video play ho jayegi, zyada se zyada wo ek quiz le lega. But the kind of technology that they're working on is one that measures student affect and student emotion. And then in addition to, you know, other actions that the student is taking and doing, they use emotion to sort of feed back into how the system will respond. So they can figure out who is anxious, they can figure out who's having trouble or who's engaged and enjoying themselves. So it's a really profound way of looking at someone's educational experience and the way technology can truly support that as a tool. So that's where I am right now. What we're working on specifically is something called computational thinking. Computational thinking is essentially आपने कोई भी जो काम करना है, उसको if you break it down to its basic quanta, that's computational thinking. You build an algorithm. You say अगर मैंने उठ के जाके दरवाजा खोलना है, तो हमारे लिए intuitively that's one task, but it's actually several small tasks that are grouped together to do one thing. And the important thing for that is it aims to develop problem solving and develop this notion that I am a problem solver and I am creative through programming, through coding, through technology. So that's where I wanted to be. And it's something that I've been wondering about and thinking about for at least 7 to 8 years now, because जो मेरी freshman year class थी at LUMS as an undergraduate, उसमें we had this programming course, and that's where I truly fell in love with the idea of computation as a creative process. SOE ने बहुत उस तरह मदद की. My friends joke that I am SOE spokesperson because in any informal gathering also, I will start talking about how, you know, the program really transformed. Because for me, these peers were really important and they were very valuable. So where SOE really helped me figure out कि what is it that I really want to do, because आपके पास वो freedom है. And I still remember कि जो पहली class थी हमारी research methods की with Dr. Rabia, उसमें जो literature review वाली आपकी जो exercise है, she said कि start going through things and start looking at what is it that you would like to do. And that's something that stuck with me. And that's something that came up in conversations with Dr. Andrabi as well. Okay, what is it that I want to do? So, you know, it helped me figure out कि if I say have a dream grant, मैं क्या ढूंढना चाहती हूँ? What is the question that I want to answer? And you know, again, the structure that SOE provides really lets you have those projects, build and develop them, course correct when they go wrong, and figure out कि अच्छा इस iteration में ये किया, अगली दफा मैंने क्या बदलना है. So I've had projects that spill over into other courses, that spill over into independent research. Two really important things that SOE did for me, because of which I know, you know, I landed here, is एक चीज ये है कि आपके पास dean advising sessions हैं और आपके professors बहुत accessible हैं. So those were really valuable. Those conversations were really valuable for me, and they were also unique because I've had a LUMS experience before, and this is not the way other schools are structured. You don't have this kind of access to somebody else's time. And the other thing that SOE did was in the February of the year that I was applying, February 2019, they did this exercise with us कि आप अपना एक doctoral abstract लिखें. And just that exercise of sitting down and figuring out again with a dream grant, what do I do? is something that is still continuing for me, because I'm still working along the same dimensions that I decided मेरे लिए gender पे research important है, मेरे लिए language पे research important है. And one thing that Dr. Andrabi would say to me is कि अच्छा, you had a science education and now you've had, you know, an experience of what education is और education के बारे में सोचना कैसे है. So आपको education की अब आगे PhD शायद ना चाहिए for what I wanted to do. And he said you have to really figure out what's your sweet spot. And for me, you know, that was this interdisciplinary thing where psychology is coming in, technology is coming in, and science is coming in. So I really feel that काफी चीजें in order आई because of the MPhil itself. So you're muted.
Sorry, Tadha, किधर हैं आप? Same question to you. आप किधर हैं और किधर जा रहे हैं?
मैं तो इधर ही हूँ. Dr. Bari, if you could do me the favor of repeating the question, please. I was lucky enough to catch Angela's portion, which was mashallah very impressive, but I've been having internet issues and I missed your question.
अच्छा, हाँ जरूर. मैं ये पूछ रहा था कि आज आप जहाँ हैं वो वहाँ क्या कर रहे हैं, पहली चीज, and how do you reflect back on your MPhil experience कि वो उस रास्ते से आप यहाँ तक कैसे पहुँचे हैं, and where are you headed now?
That's interesting. So that sounds like a simple enough question, Dr. Bari. That's actually asking a lot, but I'll give it a stab. So मैं कहाँ पे हूँ? I'm currently working. So for a long time, I've had a foot in two different worlds, one in education and the other in business. So I have a management consultancy that I run. So one foot is there, that's head of strategy. And the other foot is in education. And I've been working at the LUMS Learning Institute as lead faculty development. And for those of my peers who know what that is, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of what that is, but for those who aren't, bear with me. Faculty development is just a smaller niche field of higher education, and basically you help faculty develop professionally, be it in research or teaching, training, management, that sort of thing. And LUMS has been working on, Dr. Bari's aware, and so are some of the other faculty members at SOE. LUMS has been working on sort of institutionalizing faculty development and teaching and learning practices, because we have a research track and we don't pay so much attention to teaching and learning. So LUMS has been doing that structurally. So I'm part of that. We do a lot of trainings, course development, that sort of stuff. That's where I am currently. And we're doing some fascinating things in terms of trying to create a completely asynchronous course online, sort of like Coursera. LUMS is launching its own sort of version of platform which will host MOOCs, LUMSX, and a number of courses are being developed for that. And the LUMS Learning Institute has this foundational course called Instructional Skills Training. It's a 3-day, almost 24-hour training program to improve instructional training, and that's being sort of mapped onto LUMSX, where we're trying to make a MOOC out of it. So completely asynchronous, do it at your own pace. That's been fun and challenging. I've been working with a whole team actually, and I just get to do the coordination mostly. But some of your peers for second year students have been working on this. That's been really fun. In terms of how SOE
reflect SOE पे भी करें, and how are you thinking of this?
Yeah, so to be honest, LUMS Learning Institute made the job, right? I got that before I got an offer. Actually, I couldn't actually join until I'd graduated, but I'd been working with Dr. Lana, a number of other faculty members, and I was offered a sort of a temp position, an RA position, before I even graduated. And so really, to answer the question of how SOE has helped me, I wouldn't be on this track. I mean, I had experience with training as part of the management consultancy, but corporate training is a very different sort of training. Training in education is extremely different. It's another world altogether. And just being able to do the two has been interesting. So SOE has helped me in that if you ask for, it's sort of like the Dumbledore line, in Harry Potter. Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. So you can just say that help will always be given to SOE to those who ask for it. And so SOE, I was I got the chance of, I mean, for example, the leadership course that we took with Dr. Mariam, for me, that was one of my favorite courses. And so I had the privilege of being able to talk about the interest that I had in the different areas, and the faculty were open to it. And the more I demonstrated my interest by, you know, asking, what can I do? Where can I be involved? The more opportunities I was just handed, sort of like on a silver platter. And I saw that happening to many of my other colleagues as well. And so SOE was, I mean, it was instrumental. Without the MPhil program, I mean, we were trained to think critically. We forget that we forget how critical we become of the program, but it's really a marvelous opportunity where you come for 2 years, and for 2 years you get to think about education strategically, and that's all you're doing. You have so many different angles, so many different topics for a sustained period of time, where a lot of your peers, and you learn from your peers more so than possibly your instructors and faculty members. It's such a rich incubator that when we go outside of it, then that's when we begin to realize how truly helpful it's been. So that's one way SOE has been helpful, by allowing me to think about education in a disciplined manner for 2 years. The second thing is that it's just this platform for opportunities. They're just handed to you. That's the second way. And the third way is an incredibly helpful staff and faculty. From Dr. Mariam to Dr. Taiba to Dr. Bari yourself to Dr. Lana, who's been just instrumental in the work that I've been doing. So really the short of it is just, if you want to do something, you know, demonstrate interest, and SOE is there. It'll provide an opportunity to help you do so.
Talha, thank you very much for this start. And by the way, to all the students, I did not tell any of them to talk about anything in particular about SE. So ये ना समझना मैंने इनसे कहा था ऐसी बातें करें, और ये करेंगे भी नहीं मेरे कहने पे, ठीक? Sumaya, same question. Where are you? What are you doing? How did that happen?
All right. Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum everyone, and I'm really pleased to be here and being part of the inaugural session of AlumniConnect. Currently, I am working as a lead facilitator at Leo's Workshop. Leo's Workshop is a new project by Beacon House Group, and it is a micro school. Micro school in a sense that it will accommodate only 90 to 100 students max. And the concept is being taken from our very own one-room village schools with different age of learners. So basically, it is a micro school with following a PBL approach, that is project-based learning, in a multi-grade setting. So there's a lot of things happening in a micro school. And my role as a facilitator is a lot more than just facilitating the early years. It basically, since I am one of the core team members, so I am also involved in devising the school policy, designing the curriculum, which we are making our own curriculum, and you know, designing the assessments, homework policy, personalized learning plans. So there's a lot of things happening over there, and there's lots of learning happening over there. So that is how it's unique and you know, very much related to my interest, since I always wanted to be connected to the curriculum design, and this project has really provided me that opportunity. Apart from that, I also own a venture by the name of Jugnu, the Enlightened Learners. So this project was started back in 2014 with the aim of building agency in children through strengthening their thinking and learning. And this we do it with conducting workshops, providing distance learning programs, and also I am also looking forward to expand it further and work towards providing digital solutions like educational videos and apps. So this is how I'm looking at it. and I want it to be, I want to scale it up in the future. How SOE has helped me get till here is, I think the whole 2-year journey. I would say the diversity that it provided during the program. I mean, as much as we learned from our professors, there's a lot of learning that happened within each other. I mean, each one of us was from a different city, representing their culture, coming up with their own perspective. So we get to know a lot about their culture, the challenges they face there. So I think that was the highlight of the MPhil program. Apart from that, I also think the program has been designed in such a way that in every course, the voice and choice given to the learners was really important. And that has really, helped us, keeping us tracked, keeping us anchored to our interest. So, for example, if there was a course of school effectiveness, and my area of interest was exploring public schools, so I chose that, and I, did the whole project there, and it really helped me learn the system of public schools and the problems or the challenges they face over there. So this voice and choice aspect of MPhil program is really highlight, and I think it should continue, and I think it will continue. So this has really helped me to get to where I am right now, and to hook to the area of interest that I am going to look into future. So other than that, as Angela has mentioned in her conversation, that Dean advising sessions, they really proved helpful. Whatever, I mean, Dean advising sessions उस तरह से होते थे कि आपके जो दिल में आप वो कह सकते हैं without any fear. तो उसमें आप जो भी हमारे दिल में जो भी कंप्लेंट्स होती थी, कुछ भी हमें कहना होता था प्रोग्राम के बारे में, अपनी जिंदगी के मसलों के बारे में, कुछ भी, तो वो हम डीन एडवाइजिंग सेशन में काफ़ी हद तक एक्सप्रेस कर देते थे, और रिस्पॉन्स भी उसका बड़ा मज़ेदार होता था. कभी डांट भी पड़ती थी, बट ये होता था कि एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आप बहुत ज़्यादा मोटिवेटेड होके निकलते थे उस रूम से कि नहीं, आपने ये करना है, आपका फोकस ये है, और आपने ज़रूर इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट करना है. तो आई थिंक वो जो डीन एडवाइजिंग सेशंस हैं हमेशा याद रहेंगे, और आई थिंक बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट फीचर था हमारी ओवरऑल जर्नी का MPhil के. So that's about it.
So by the way, ये जो क्लास थी ना, इनके डीन एडवाइजिंग सेशन ताहिर के साथ थे. So you're getting, all of you, the current students are getting a poor alternative, but that's the way it is. तो वो इसलिए वो ताहिर की बात कर रही हैं सुमैया यहाँ पे. But nonetheless, hopefully we'll be able to, at least the health part will be there. कुछ और हिस्से ताहिर के जो पर्सनालिटी के थे वो शायद ना हो सके. That was very unique to Tahir. Angela, a number of people here are interested in PhD programs, studies, etc. Is there any reflection in terms of what should they focus more on? How should they think about their research proposal? अभी ज़रूरत है या नहीं? और ये दोनों हैं, first year, second year type mixed है. तो क्या, is there something you would like to tell them that sort of makes their path to that more clearer?
So you want like a logistical help, or do you want
more reflective in terms of how to clear a path towards that, how to think about it, whether to go in it or not, what are the kind of skills they might want to focus on, etc. वो PhD की admission process को छोड़ दें, वो तो ठीक है.
ठीक है. So thinking about it कि आपने So one thing, a PhD itself, मुझे किसी ने शुरू में कहा था कि it itself is a marathon. So it's not a sprint. But what I learned was applying to a PhD, selecting a PhD, getting in, getting there or not getting there because of Corona is also a marathon. So just be prepared कि आप थोड़ी सी frustration tolerance is what you need to start off with. दूसरी चीज that I discovered really late on, जो कि I would want to offer to you guys as an insight is how do you figure out if a PhD program is for you? And a lot of people just look at rankings, and that's a very one-dimensional way of looking at things. And if you really delve into it, तो rankings जिन चीजों के ऊपर assign की जाती हैं, वो अक्सर आपकी जिंदगी को affect नहीं करती as a graduate student. It's more of an undergraduate thing often. So don't get too caught up in rankings. But how do you figure out कि आपने PhD करनी है? And how do you figure out आपने किस चीज में PhD करनी है? So for the first part, I think if you intrinsically and really excited to answer questions that are unanswered, you are somebody who's because उसके इस सारे के अंदर in this marathon intrinsic बहुत दूसरी चीज, how do you figure out what you want to do? Again, I think it has to be a very structured exercise where you sit down and you think about, okay, here are things that interest me, here are things that the world needs, and where is it that I can do that? If you are now looking at PhD programs, how can you shortlist programs or professors? You can look at their papers, you can look at what they're publishing, you can look at what their research was, what their trajectory has been, कि अच्छा इन्होंने पहले क्या किया, इनकी टीम में कैसे लोग. So those are things that will sort of help you fit well with this person. Because so I have friends जिन्होंने foreign undergraduate के बाद PhD में admission ले लिया, and now हमें साल लगे हैं in sort of pushing and making our PhD to be what we wanted to do. Because तब तो हमने क्या किया, जहाँ admission हुआ and realize ये तो हम करना ही नहीं चाहते. So maybe don't do that yourself, right? So figure out what is it you want to do, and Dr. Bari ने actually मुझे कहा था, मैं इनके पास भी advising के लिए एक दफा आई थी, तो इन्होंने मुझे कहा था कि जो आपकी safe schools हैं या bottom choice है, वो भी ऐसा program नहीं होना चाहिए जो आप करना नहीं चाहते, because you can't be miserable and survive it. So you have to be feeling fulfilled, and fulfillment is not it's not the same as happiness. It's close, but you have to feel like this is where I belong. It's a sense of belongingness, or this is the kind of person I want to be. So where I am right now, I look at my supervisor and I think this is the kind of person I want to be, because she is not only does she have a very in-depth idea of how education works, how human cognition and psychology works, she's also building those systems. जो कि चीज़ अभी मेरे पास नहीं, I will learn it through my coursework later, कि आपने ये artificial intelligence बनानी कैसे, आपने data mining करनी कैसे. And then because SOE gives me वही large scale policy perspectives and वो वाली चीजें, so I can combine all of those things in my unique research. So those are things. So I think the biggest वही marker कि आपने figure out कैसे करना है is what are you drawn to, and where do you draw joy from? It has to be that, and I guess that's a fairly good way of figuring out where you need to be. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. दादा, मैं अगर आपसे पूछूं, आपने मेंशन किया था कि you have a foot in the world of I think consulting and doing strategy work also. Is my recollection correct, right?
Yep.
So थोड़ा सा ये बताएं कि personality traits का कितना रोल है वहाँ, language skills, confidence और ये चीजें जो हैं, और ये हम किस तरह इन 2 सालों को, ये लोग जो इस वक्त प्रोग्राम के थ्रू जा रहे हैं, किस तरह इस चीज को कैसे देखें?
डॉक्टर बारी, आप मुझसे ना मुश्किल सवाल पूछते हैं. Personality traits, I think I can speak to how they affected me, or what I perceive of it, or what my reflection has informed me about myself. And that's this, that I don't think personality traits are so much a boon or a hindrance in terms of our pursuing one thing or another. I think they inform what we decide to pursue. So as an example of my own experience, I was really drawn to the leadership course that Dr. Chuptai offered. And for me, it was one of the highlights of the experience. Now, I was coming into the MPhil through a liberal arts background in political science and lots of reading and lots of writing. That's where my natural traits lay, in reading and writing and speaking. And so naturally, I also had some experience in business. So I was drawn to the leadership course more so than I was to the others. And I was really interested in, sorry about that. I was really interested in exploring how I could exercise, just like the course is meant to be. I was really interested in exploring how I could exercise leadership at the program level from a position in which I had no authority per se, right? How could I help to achieve the program objectives? How could I align my own objectives or the objectives of my colleagues, those personal goals and objectives with those of the program, and how can I take the whole team together? That happened to be one of the things I was struggling with during in the management consultancy as well. So I was naturally drawn to that more so than any of the other things. So speaking, if I recall your question correctly, is what role do these traits play in what we decide to do? I think there's a diverse course offering in terms of the electives we have, but also in terms of the exposure that we get. So for instance, I don't know how it's been for those of my peers who've been affected by COVID, but we actually got the chance to go to schools almost every Friday or every other Friday. We had these school visits, and we had exposure to low-income schools and medium income schools and some of the more elite schools. And as Angela was speaking about it, and so was Samaya, school effectiveness was a major. That's a course that allowed me to explore leadership at the school management level within education. So I would say that there's a bit of everything. I mean, Angela was interested in cognition and AI and the applications of that within education. She found her spot. Samaya, from what I recall, was interested in trainings, and she found her little niche. I was interested in exploring how we can affect change at the sort of program level. And Allah ki karni kuch aise hui hai ke that's one of the things I'm doing in faculty development at the LLI. So I guess there's a bit of, there's something for everybody. It's a bit of a buffet. And really the program can't give you everything on a silver platter. You have to sort of take the first taste and, take the initiative and go talk to faculty members. The faculty members who were most relevant for me were, Dr. Mariam and Dr. Taiba and Dr. Lana. And so I had the greatest interaction with them. And from the management consultancy perspective, the person who had the greatest experience, to my knowledge, was Dr. Tahir. And so I, really got, because he had a lot of students working at the nexus of AI and education and trainings and many of those things. So I got to experience that through him. I didn't go to any of the dean advising sessions though. I'm probably one of the few who didn't take advantage of that. But
so that,
I guess it dictates.
So I presume you're taking it as a process of discovery also, where you get buffet में बहुत सारी चीजें taste करने को मिली और उसके बाद जो पसंद आई, you dive into that deeper. That's the second helping and the third helping and subsequent helpings. मेरा size देख के subsequent helping में helping ज़्यादा आती हैं, but so that's बिल्कुल ठीक है. So now it's a very novel idea to think about learning which is across years, right? So rather than grouping people by age, you are grouping people by ability and learning, etc. And that's something that is talked about a lot in literature now. आप जब ये देख रही हैं और कर रही हैं, तो how are you linking that with how you think you want to take it forward into the future as well? Is that something that you want to sort of specialize in? Are you thinking of going into creating or doing something in that area?
Yes. अच्छा, okay. So अभी जो PBL approach और multi-grade classrooms हम अभी जो experience कर रहे हैं Leo's workshop में, तो it's challenging کیونکہ ہماری جو ایک ٹریڈیشنل تھنکنگ ہے یا ٹریڈیشنل وے میں جس طرح سے ہماری اسکولنگ ہوئی ہے اس میں تو یہی ہوتا ہے کہ گریڈ 4 ہے, گریڈ 5 ہے, گریڈ 6 ہے, گریڈ 1 ہے, گریڈ 2. بٹ اب جب آپ اس کو پریکٹیکلی امپلیمنٹ کرتے ہیں کہ فار ایگزامپل لیوز ورک شاپ میں دیر آر 3 کیٹیگریز. ارلی ایئرز میں 3 to 5 years کے اسٹوڈنٹس ہیں. سو بیسکلی نرسری, ریسیپشن اینڈ کنڈر گارڈن. سو اب ان تینوں کو آپ نے ایک ساتھ لے کے چلنا ہے. اس میں پروجیکٹس بھی ساتھ کروانے ہیں, اس کے بعد ان کی لرننگ بھی میپ کرنی ہے کہ کون کس لیول پہ ہے. پلس یہ بھی اس میں ہوتا ہے کہ کچھ لرنرز جو ہیں وہ کوئک لرنرز ہوتے ہیں, تو اگر وہ نرسری میں ہے تو وہ ہو سکتا ہے کہ ریسیپشن یا کنڈر گارڈن کے لیول کی میتھ یا انگلش یا سائنس کوئی بھی سبجیکٹ وہ وہاں تک ان کی ایبلٹی ہے کہ وہ گریب کر رہے ہیں. سو آئی تھنک کافی چیلنجنگ بھی ہے, بٹ لرننگ ایکسپیرئنس بھی ہے. آپ کو کافی کچھ ان لرن کرنا پڑتا ہے. میرا ایکسپیرئنس یہ ہے کہ مجھے کافی چیزیں ان لرن کرنی پڑ رہی ہیں نئی چیزیں سیکھنے کے لیے, کیونکہ جتنی بھی آپ ٹریننگس لے لیں, سو وی آر PBL سرٹیفائڈ ٹرینرز نا, آپ جتنی بھی ٹریننگ لے لیں, جب آپ امپلیمنٹیشن کی طرف آتے ہیں نا, تو آپ کی جو اسکولنگ ہے یا جو جس طرح سے آپ کا براٹ اپ ہوا ہے, کہیں نہ کہیں وہ امپیکٹ کر رہا ہوتا ہے. تو آپ کو ہر دن کوئی نئی چیز سیکھنے کے لیے ایک چیز ان لرن کرنی پڑتی ہے. سو ان دیٹ وے اٹ از چیلنجنگ. بٹ یس, ہم نے یہ دیکھا ہے کہ ہم اگر ملٹی گریڈ سیٹنگ میں کوئی نرسری کا بچہ ہے تو وہ اس کی جو لرننگ ہے وہ کافی فاسٹ ہو جاتی ہے اگر اس کے ساتھ کنڈر گارڈن یا گریڈ 1 کا بچہ ساتھ پڑھ رہا ہے, کیونکہ وہ ان میں ایک بڑا ہیلدی کمپٹیشن ہوتا ہے کہ وہ چیز اس کو آتی ہے تو مجھے نہیں آتی, مجھے بھی یہ چیز آنی چاہیے. تو اس طرح کا ہیلدی کمپٹیشن ہے. اور اس چیز کو آگے میں اس طرح سے لے کے جانا چاہتی ہوں, جو میں نے ابھی مینشن کیا ہے کہ آئی ہیو مائی اون وینچر. تو اس میں PBL اپروچ یعنی پروجیکٹ بیسڈ لرننگ کو کس طرح سے ہم NGOs یا جو لو کاسٹ پرائیویٹ اسکولز ہیں یا جو بچے اس اپروچ تک نہیں پہنچ سکتے, جن کا ایکسیس نہیں ہے, ہم یہ اپروچ وہاں تک کیسے لے کے جا سکیں. سو آئی ایم ورکنگ آن دیٹ, اینڈ ان فیوچر آئی ووڈ وانٹ کہ PBL اپروچ کو میں ان کے لیے ایکسیسیبل بناؤں, بیکاز PBL اپروچ بیسکلی یہی ہے نا کہ آپ کی جو لرننگ ہے وہ سرفیس لیول کے بجائے آن اے ڈیپر لیول ہو رہی ہے. کسی بھی تھیم کو آپ ایکسپلور کر رہے ہیں تو وہ آپ آن اے ڈیپر لیول جا کے کر رہے ہیں, جو کہ ہماری ٹریڈیشنل اسکولنگ میں پاسبل ہی نہیں ہے, کیونکہ اس میں نہ کوئی پیریڈس, آپ کا کوئی بیل بج رہی ہے اور آپ کا سائنس کا لیسن اسٹارٹ ہو رہا ہے, آپ کا اردو کا لیسن اسٹارٹ ہو رہا ہے, اس طرح سے کوئی کانسیپٹ نہیں ہے. آپ نے ایک پروجیکٹ اسٹارٹ کیا ہے, اب آپ کو اس کو ہر ڈائمینشن سے ایکسپلور کرنا ہے. سو آئی ریئلی وانٹ کہ obviously کافی ایکسپینسو اپروچ ہے, ایکسیسیبل نہیں ہے یہ, بٹ مجھے میرے پاس یہی چیلنج ہے کہ میں اس کو کس طرح سے کسٹمائز کر کے اور ایکسیسیبل بنا سکوں انڈر پریویلیجڈ کمیونٹی یا جو بھی مارجنلائز چلڈرن جن کے پاس یہ ایکسیس نہیں ہے. So that is how I really wanted to take it forward.
That's a very nice challenge to have. کیونکہ وہ جو ہے کیا یہ جو بیکن ہاؤس وغیرہ اپنے ہائی اسکول وہ مہنگے والے اسکول میں لے کے آئے تھے اپروچ پروجیکٹ بیس, مجھے پتہ نہیں اس کا نام بھول گیا, TNS میں وہ یہی تھا نا کہ اس کا سب سے بڑا مسئلہ یہ ہے کہ وہ اس کی کاسٹ اتنی زیادہ کہہ رہے ہیں کہ اگر وہ لو کاسٹ میں لانے کی کوشش کریں تو وہ بات نہیں بنتی ابھی تک. کم از کم میڈیم کاسٹ پہ آیا ہے, ٹاکنگ ٹو فیو پیپل جہاں پہ وہ ٹرائی کچھ کر رہے ہیں, بٹ آئی تھنک دیٹس وڈ بی سچ اے نائس کنٹریبیوشن آن دا quality of education. اچھا, اب میں I'm just opening it up to everyone. Please just raise your hand, and then once recognized, ask your questions. Now is your chance to ask from these wonderful people who have I mean, if I may say so, اور یہ میں مکھن نہیں لگا رہا, but I am so right now happy to see where all three of you are, and so very pleased with where mentally as well as in terms of what you're doing. It's lovely to see that. जी जनाब, कोई सवालो जवाब, कोई concerns, questions, comments? Ji Hasnan, please go ahead.
So I'm Hasnan and I'm currently secondary student at MPhil SOE. So my question was to all three of us, three of the panelists who are here today from alumni. So my question is, the time when you guys graduated was very critical, and uske baad, the time we are about to graduate, it seems like things are moving towards the same direction in which they had been there a year before when you guys graduated. So at that time, what helped you in sort of securing the jobs which you guys wanted, and what was the exercise which helped you, and what would be the suggestion which you guys would be giving to us when we are sort of looking for jobs in next 3 to 4 months? So that's my question which I want to pose to this panelist.
अच्छा, बिफोर यू आंसर, मेरा अपना वैसे ख्याल है कि मार्केट काफ़ी खुल रही है. आप जिस वक्त बाहर आए थे बड़ा मुश्किल वक्त था, लेकिन नाउ द मार्केट इज ओपनिंग अप. बट एनीवे, प्लीज गो अहेड, एनी वन ऑफ यू हु वांट्स टू एड्रेस दिस. कोई मशवरे, कोई बताना चाहे? जी जी प्लीज. जी सुमैया.
Oh, अच्छा, I thought Talha was going first.
उसके बाद तलहा से कह देंगे. हाँ जी.
Okay. हसनैन, मुझे अभी भी याद है कि जब हमारी अप्रैल की बात है, मार्च में कोविड हैपन. सो अप्रैल में जब हमारा थीसिस और सारी ओरल डिफेंस वगैरह हो चुका था, तो उसके बाद फिर मैंने ईमेल की हेरा को कि ओके, सो अब जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ क्या हैं, तो मुझे बताएं, मुझे अप्लाई करना है. तो शी सेड कि एवरीथिंग इज़ क्लोज, नोबडी इज़ हायरिंग, तो अभी आप ज़रा आराम से बैठें. तो उस वक्त वो काफ़ी शॉकिंग सिचुएशन थी कि ओ गॉड, ये क्या हुआ है और अब होगा क्या आगे. बट होता ये है कि कुछ टाइम लगा था उस डिनायल फेज से आने में, बाहर आने में, कि ये कोई बीमारी है या कोई पैंडेमिक है जो कि रहेगा भी. दिस इज़ नॉट अ शॉर्ट टर्म थिंग जो ख़त्म हो जाएगा. तो उस सिचुएशन को डील करने के लिए थोड़ा सा डिनायल फेज से पहले बाहर आए. उसके बाद फिर जब एक्सेप्ट कर लिया, तो ऑब्वियसली जॉब मार्केट तो थी नहीं उस वक्त. जॉब्स अगर हार्डली हो भी रही थी, मिल भी रही थी, तो बहुत ज़्यादा कंपटीशन था, जिसमें काफ़ी मुश्किल था कि हर किसी को जॉब मिले. तो उस वक्त फिर यही था, या दो तरीके थे डील करने के. एक ये था कि आप हाथ पे हाथ रख के बैठे रहें और आप खाली जॉब का वेट करते रहें कि अब जॉब मिलेगी तो हम करेंगे. दूसरा तरीका ये है कि जो अवेलेबल अपॉर्चुनिटी है या उसको आप किस तरह से यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं. तो मेरे पास एक वाहिद अपॉर्चुनिटी यही है कि मेरे पास जो मेरा वेंचर है कोई बहुत ह्यूज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन नहीं है, इट्स जस्ट अ होम बेस्ड थिंग. तो मेरे पास यही एक ऑप्शन था कि मैं इसी को कुछ आगे लेके बढ़ूं. तो जो बच्चे मेरे पास आते थे पढ़ने के लिए, मैं उनकी मदर मेरे पास आई कि बच्चे स्कूल नहीं जा रहे हैं और घर में बैठे होते हैं, तो आप इनको पढ़ाएं, आप इनको बुला के पढ़ाएं. तो उस वक्त ऑब्वियसली कोविड की सिचुएशन ऐसी थी कि मैं घर बुला के पढ़ा नहीं सकती थी. तो उसके बाद फिर मैंने यही सोचा कि इनके लिए कुछ लर्निंग पैक टाइप की चीज़ बनाई जाए जो इनको आप दे दें और फिर ये सॉल्व करके आपको वापस कर दें, फिर आप देख लें कि लर्निंग उससे हो रही है या नहीं हो रही. तो वो उसके थ्रू फिर वो जो डिस्टेंस लर्निंग प्रोग्राम की मैं अभी बात कर रही थी, उस तरह से वो इनिशिएट हुई थी कि फिर लर्निंग पैक एक पूरा मैंने डिज़ाइन किया, उनको वर्कशीट्स दी जिसके अंदर स्टेशनरी भी थी, वर्कशीट्स भी थी, कुछ उस तरह की एक्टिविटीज़ भी थी कि वो कुछ जोड़ के बना लें, कट करके इस तरह की. तो वो फिर लर्निंग पैक दिया. उसके बाद फिर सॉल्व होके मेरे पास आई शीट्स, जिसको देख के मुझे अंदाज़ा हुआ कि मुझे इस पर काफ़ी इम्प्रूवमेंट की गुंजाइश है. बिकॉज मैं समझ रही थी कि अब मैंने एक वर्कशीट बनाई है जिसमें मैंने उनसे एक सवाल किया है कि अगर आप चिड़िया होते तो क्या करते? तो उस पे मुझे जवाब आया था तो मैं उड़ता, दैट्स इट। फिर उसको काफ़ी मैंने उसके ऊपर सोचा कि नहीं, आई थिंक मुझे इस पे काफ़ी काम करने की ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि मैं अज्यूम कर रही हूँ कि मैंने ये क्वेश्चन लिखा है और उसका थॉट प्रोसेस स्टार्ट हो जाएगा और वो एक पूरा पैराग्राफ लिख देगा। इस तरह से होता नहीं है। तो फिर मुझे उसको दोबारा से मैंने रीडिज़ाइन किया और प्रॉम्प्ट्स डाले उसके अंदर, ताकि उनका थिंकिंग प्रोसेस स्टार्ट हो और फिर वो उसमें मज़ीद अपनी चीज़ें ऐड करें। तो इस तरह से वो एक प्रोसेस चलता रहा जब तक कि नौकरी नहीं मिली। फिर उसके बाद नौकरी मिल गई तो थोड़ा सा प्रोसेस पॉज हो गया, बट इस चीज़ को फिर मैं आगे कंटिन्यू रखूंगी। उस पे काम चल रहा है, पायलटिंग चल रही है, उसको इम्प्रूव कर रहे हैं, फिर दोबारा से उसको लॉन्च करना है।
लल्हा?
I mean, I'll answer that in two parts. My apologies to those of us who aren't very religious, but मेरा मानना ये है कि risk अल्लाह से मिलना है, and so that's my first part. तो वो जब लिखा है वो मिल के रहना है, either through business or through anything, वो मिलेगा. So for me, just that belief helped because वो थोड़ा ठहराव आ गया job search process के अंदर के वो एक्टिविटीज जारी थी कि मैंने XYZ करना है, I have to go through this list, but वो ठहराव था कि I'm doing my part, और वो अक्सर सुना होगा हमने कि हरकत में बरकत है. तो I was content to just हरकत, तो बरकत फिर खुद ही इंतजार कर रहा था. तो that's the first thing for me. The other very practical things that really helped were first and foremost SOE guided SOE training sessions. For example, we had this whole session on how to write a resume. What's the difference between a resume and a CV? And what does a one-page resume look like? And to be completely honest and transparent with you guys, because I had been in business for a number of years, I find it shameful, but I thought I was above these things. That मैं तो इतने सारे इंटरव्यू लेता हूँ, तो मुझे इंटरव्यू देना आता है, मुझे पता है कैसे उसको पूरा करने. And I was really kidding myself, which is, I don't want to shake the confidence of my peers who have a tremendous degree of experience, but what I'm trying to highlight is that the training helps. It's like an icebreaker. कि किसी से आपने इंटरव्यू करने और आधा पौना घंटा अगर आपकी उनसे गपशप हो जाती है, तो you just become at ease before the interview. So that's what that session served to do, and it served to spruce up my resume. So that was the first thing. The second thing was in mock interviews that helped, and they held them from people in the industry. So I don't know what's happening this year, but हमारे पे काफी जान मारी थी, so that helped. And the third thing was जो हमारी networking night थी, where we had a bunch of different organizations who came, and we got a chance to give interviews, and some people got job offers. Interestingly enough, I ended up getting a job offer before that, and so I didn't even attend one of the interviews, एक organization का, but that was only because of a friend. And मतलब यहाँ से पे नजर आती है अल्लाह ताला की मेहरबानी यहाँ पे कि अल्लाह ताला वो लोग भी आपके रास्ते में डाल देती हैं. All you have to do is patiently just try and take advantage of the opportunity. So two more things I would recommend is go through your Facebook contacts, your LinkedIn contacts, your WhatsApp contacts, and try and identify who's where, and just reach out to them with a small one-liner or two-liner. Hi, I'm doing such and such, and if you have any opportunities, please keep me in mind. And that helps. And that's part of the harkat mein barkat wali cheez hai. And then the last thing I would recommend, and I can't emphasize this enough, is some of the professional networking tools. And foremost amongst them is LinkedIn. And not just building up your profile. I mean, being active on it. And maybe, YouTube, best practices on LinkedIn, where you have some status updates, which aren't which aren't you bragging, but think about it. After 2 years of the MPhil, if we're not complete experts, but we're experienced practitioners within a field, and we can use our social media profiles to demonstrate that we're experienced practitioners within the field of education. And so I find those LinkedIn posts, not to put you on the spot, Dr. Bari, but a lot of what Dr. Bari is doing, because he's practicing within the field of education and he has opinions about it. And so those opinions are reflected regularly in the articles that he writes. And we get to read those opinions and benefit from them or disagree with them. So I would encourage us to do that. That worked for me, and that is still working for me. And I'm still getting offers, which I've had to decline. And the offer at LUMS, just by way of an example, was my second offer. COVID ke andar bhi. So I actually had another offer before that, and I got to choose. Alhamdulillah. We may not get to choose in every circumstance, but it also, one thing I can't emphasize this enough, is when you go out into the market and when you're हर दरवाजे पे दस्तक नहीं देनी, क्यूरेट करके दस्तक देनी है, बट जब आप 15 दरवाज़ों पे दस्तक देते हैं और आपकी 15 नहीं तो आपकी 3-4 conversations होती हैं, you really get to evaluate yourself vis-a-vis the market, and the biggest question is कि पैसे कितने लेने हैं, salary कितनी लेनी है. You get to answer that question, okay, and you're able to identify, मतलब कुछ ख्वाब होते हैं कि निकलते साथ ही 2 लाख की जॉब चाहिए, 2.5 की चाहिए, 1.5 की चाहिए, but you really get to evaluate what is your worth to your organization, that what's going to be your value addition, and what is the price that they place on that value addition, and what is the price that you're placing on it. And so you really get to bargain, and you get a really good sense of what's out there in the market and how you can leverage that. Sorry for the extended response, but those would be my 2 cents.
There's a very interesting paper or two on this issue of एक बंदे ने किया था, Christmas पे presents बड़े दिए जाते हैं, तो उन्होंने ये किया था कि what is the price that was paid by the person who gave the present, and what is the value that was put on that present by the person who received it. And it's a lovely, fascinating paper, because it shows कि हम जब guess करने की कोशिश करते हैं ना कि दूसरा present को किस तरह evaluate करेगा, उसमें बड़ा फर्क आता है between what we think about what the other person wants and what the other person actually wants. So जिसको जराबें या स्वेटर मिला है उसको पता नहीं कुछ और चाहिए था, साइकिल चाहिए थी या कुछ और चाहिए था, तो वो कहता है ये किधर से आ गया जराबें और साइकिल. So that point about what you bring to the table, how you think what is your value and how does the organization or others look at, I think that's a very important point. Of course, that shouldn't cripple you, but that's an important point to keep in mind when you're thinking about these things. बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं आप. हाँ जी जनाब, और कोई सवाल, कोई क्वेश्चन? मैं हाथ नहीं देख रहा कोई. अच्छा, इनका तो ना बिल्कुल जैसे आप कह रहे थे कि there's for the second year जो इस वक्त फातिमा, एक सेकंड में आपके पास आ रहा हूँ. मैं वैसे जस्ट टू क्लैरिफाई कि सेकंड ईयर के लिए बिल्कुल वही प्रोसेस दोबारा है. इस साल ऑब्वियसली पहला करके we are more organized. I think we are more prepared for COVID also, so we hope that the process will be even better for this year's placements inshallah. But वो है तकरीब elements हुई हैं, उसको जरा ज़्यादा structure और organize कर रहे हैं. Sorry Fatma, जी please go ahead.
Hi guys, thank you for coming and talking to us. So my question is something that I feel like I struggle with even when I'm working on my resume or cover letter and everything. Because like just now when I was writing my cover letter and I was asked to think of a job opening and then apply for that. So the thing is, for me, figuring out what my interest is where I struggle the most. Like just I know that whenever I think of Angela, I can think of technology with her foreign he. So like as in I know that Angela fits there so much that she even fits there in my head. So I don't know where I fit yet. So as in I don't know, I'm just trying to understand that just a second year bhi ho gaya hai and everything. So like as in I'm just trying to find out how other people work that part out. Like how do you find out which part of the buffet you like the most? Because right now I like all the food. So yeah, that's what my struggle is. So I don't know, any comments on that?
क्यों जी, कौन इनमें, who wants to have a stab at it?
Angela? नहीं?
Please go ahead. Sorry, आप इंजला को कह रहे थे. इंजला, do you want to?
हाँ, I can try. So I can relate because that has been me for a long time, and it's only now that I'm settling into things. And I can also relate because when I was selecting PhD programs, it was so difficult because आप कुछ भी खोलते हैं आपको इतना अच्छा लगता है. And I had a close friend who repeatedly told me कि it's not as limiting as you think it is. So आप अगर किसी भी चीज में कर लेते हो, PhD specifically, उसके बाद भी आप और fields में जाके काम कर सकते हो. So what you're learning in a PhD is research skills, and you happen to be focusing on one thing or two things. So it isn't as arresting and as limiting as I thought it was initially. So वो थोड़ा सा मेरे पास एक जब when I realized that I do have the freedom to change fields or to explore other things or to explore other things within this one big under this one big umbrella, that really made me, you know, that really helped me deal with that anxiety. And then perhaps the thing is, specifically with you, Fatma, perhaps you don't have to pick something from the buffet, right? Perhaps you can truly have a little bit of everything and continue forward with that mindset. So you can continue looking for things where you do get to, you know, think deeply about policy, and you do get to think deeply about school management, and you do get to think about language and gender and all the other dimensions that your coursework has explored. Because even though, you know, I can now actually put myself in that technology box, I am still looking at gender, I'm still looking at language, I'm still looking at, okay, agar maine ye AI design karni hai, how am I going to adapt it for people jinki English second language hai? Because I'm thinking at a larger scale of abstraction कि जब मैं पाकिस्तान वापस आऊं तो ये जो भी मैं काम कर रही हूँ ये यहाँ कैसे अप्लाई होगा. अब उसमें पॉलिसी भी आएगा, उसमें इम्प्लीमेंटेशन भी आएगा. So on the surface you can, you know, all of us can be put in boxes, but really I feel like जो SOE की training है, because of that it is very difficult to think as one compartment box. And I'll give you an example. This time I have this course जिसमें एक design propose करना है of a learning environment based on the theories of cognition that we've studied. And while I'm drawing out that project, I have additionally put in this discussion section at the end. शुरू में तो design of the intervention और theoretical background और किस तरह मेरा pluralistic theoretical stance है, Dewey है, Piaget है, ये सारे हो गई बात. But at the end, I am volunteering a discussion section in which I will talk about अच्छा इसकी implications क्या हैं, इसकी ground implications क्या है implementation की. अगर आपने इस तरह की situation में जाना होगा तब आप इसको कैसे modify करेंगे और इस design की limitations क्या हैं. So that essence of that buffet is still very much there. So I would say that, you know, you're on the right track. It's your track. There's no
Radha, do you want to add anything, or should I go on?
Yeah, I was just going to add very shortly, Fatma. Yeah, you've asked a question that I've been struggling with myself, and to borrow from, I'm probably butchering this, and forgive me for those of you who've just recently taken leadership, but Dr. Mariam talks about the disequilibrium and the productive disequilibrium in which a lot of productivity takes place. So I just wanted to speak to that. I guess I'm beginning to realize for myself, I don't know about you, Fatma, but I'm beginning to realize for myself that it might not be such a bad idea not having everything figured out. And the biggest thing for me has been, what do I do in the absence of having, you know, an objective or a goal? How do I do it? Because anything you do is either meaningful or meaningless. So what's been working for me is, and this is something I've been struggling with, but what's worked for me is committing to something. And I call it strategic commitment, in the sense where I give myself, I make sure that the commitment doesn't lead down a path from which I can't come back, but the commitment is still long enough that I decide to stick with something. And it's sticking with something that helps us explore where our interests lay. It's not an intellectual activity, it's an experiential activity for me. That's what I've learned. Unless you experience it, unless you have several interests that you're willing to explore and dedicate yourself to, there's an opportunity cost. That's when you really begin to figure out, you know, what am I doing? What am I okay doing long term? So I've decided, you know, strategically committing is, I'm going to do this for the next 6 months. Or in business, I think of it in terms of, I'm going to do this for the next 2 quarters, for the next 1 quarter. And then we'll see what the results are. And then I'll sit down and I'll reevaluate. And when I do reevaluate, I'll use these 4 guiding, I'll use these 3-4 guiding questions. And then I'll, you know, choose a path that I hadn't taken. So 2 roads diverged in a wood. Robert Frost, and we're all familiar with that. Dr. Bhai, I'm done.
अच्छा, so अभी मैं और कोई सवाल नहीं देख रहा है, टाइम भी पूरा हो रहा है. Maybe we can have more you guys back very soon. लेकिन मुझे ये बताएं कि I just want to explore one final question, which is about peer-to-peer interaction. राइट आप लोगों की दोस्तियां, आप लोगों के आपस में झगड़े लड़ाइयाँ जो भी हुआ, how has that worked out and helped you etc. क्योंकि जाहिर है जो कोविड वाले हैं उनको तो थोड़ा सा वो इस वक्त वो भी आउट ऑफ क्लास एक्सपीरियंस का भी मसला चल रहा है, बट इंटरैक्टिंग विद ईच अदर उसका कितना रोल रहा है in clarifying a lot of the things that you were talking about and in thinking about and even support in terms of moving forward. सुमैया आपसे शुरू करें, आपने
जी
अनम्यूट किया।
जी जी आई थिंक पीयर टू पीयर इंटरेक्शन मुझे तो लगता है कि सबसे ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट चीज थी हमारे 2-year एमफिल प्रोग्राम में, क्योंकि एक तो ग्रुपिंग्स भी हमारी हर प्रोजेक्ट के लिहाज से डिफरेंट ग्रुपिंग्स थी, डिफरेंट लोगों के साथ इंटरेक्शन था, उसमें लड़ाइयाँ भी थी, दोस्तियाँ भी थी, बट जो एक्सपीरियंस था एक डिफरेंस ऑफ ओपिनियन को एक्सपीरियंस करने का और एक दूसरे को बर्दाश्त करने का, चाहे आपको अच्छे लगे या ना लगे तब भी आपने वो पूरा प्रोजेक्ट कंप्लीट करना है। तो आई थिंक वो जो एक्सपीरियंस था दैट हैज रियली हेल्प्ड अस ट्रांजिशन इनटू आवर प्रोफेशनल एनवायरनमेंट, बिकॉज वहाँ पे तो हमारे पास ये फिर भी थोड़ी बहुत लिबर्टी थी कि नहीं हमें इसके साथ काम नहीं करना है, हमें ग्रुप चेंज करना है या कुछ भी, बट प्रोफेशनल एनवायरनमेंट में यू डोंट हैव दैट लिबर्टी, यू हैव टू वर्क विद कलीग्स या जो भी हैं वो आप जो भी आपके पास हैं आपको उनके साथ काम करना है। तो आई थिंक जो पीयर टू पीयर इंटरेक्शन है वो इसलिए काफ़ी इम्पोर्टेंट है कि आप में वो बर्दाश्त, वो पेशेंस, एक दूसरे को सुनने की यू नो लगन, ये सारी चीज़ें आपकी डेवलप हों ड्यूरिंग द प्रोग्राम, ताकि वो आगे जाके फिर आपको हेल्प करें प्रोफेशनल लाइफ में यू नो एडजस्ट होने में। सो आई थिंक उस लिहाज से तो काफ़ी रिच एक्सपीरियंस था हमारा पीयर टू पीयर इंटरेक्शन।
I think I'd want to add to that, if I may, कि I completely second everything Sumaya has said. जो सबसे profound learning environment थी was my class fellows, because we particularly had such a diverse class कि वो मेरे लिए इतना eye-opening experience था, and you know I learned so much from them. So you know whether it was कि अच्छा ये काम कैसे करना है, it was really a profound learning experience. And one example of that I have that's always stayed with me is कि जब हम leadership का course ले रहे थे तब I think protests हुई थी पाकिस्तान में और एक shutdown हुआ था because आसिया बीबी वाले केस वाली verdict आया था और उसके बाद things got really scary. And we had a leadership class that was dedicated to just deconstructing what had just happened. And it was so amazing to see that we had people in class who had so many different perspectives, who had the perspectives of people who were out there protesting. And we had people in class who couldn't figure out why somebody would go out to protest for something like this, right? So we had people who had such a diverse set of values and who held things dear to them that they could now explain to us. So far, maybe I've not lived that long, but I have not seen another environment in which I can have a civil, detailed conversation with another person who is so different. But क्योंकि एक बात कहते हैं कि लम्स एक बबल है, और क्योंकि मेरा अंडरग्रेड भी इधर से था और जब मैंने जहाँ नौकरी की तो वो भी सिर्फ लम्स अंडरग्रेड हायर कर रहे थे, तो मैं एक बबल में ही रही. So for me this was such a wonderful experience कि you know, if anybody is behaving in a way that I don't understand, that might be because something they hold dear to them is being threatened, and I can be more empathetic as a person. I don't know if that translates into my work as an educator, and I hope it does, but it's certainly something that has given me pause. So now before I react, I do ask myself, okay, what is it that this person has to lose that I can't understand right now? So you really, it's a lifelong thing. It's not just मुझे assignment अच्छी करनी सिखाई मेरी दोस्त ने, वो भी सिखाई. But there are so many other things you learn.
Yeah, I'll just take a sort of a concluding stab at it as well. I found my interaction with the peers, if I had to equate my interaction with faculty and peers and I had to rate them, if I absolutely had to do that, if somebody had a gun to my head, I would rate the interaction with my peers very high above what the faculty was able to give. What the faculty gives you usually is in the form of a one-on-one session or what the time that you actively solicit from them, or it's in the form of a class. What you get from your peers is this constant interaction. And again, I have two very diverse sets of experiences, and so my take on it is informed by that. So coming from the liberal arts side of it, I can't help but look at the qualitative nature of the interactions with my peers. And so just as an example, I mean, a few of my close, if I were to take 3 or 4 of my closest friends as an example in the MPhil, one of them had experience working with the Punjab government on an intervention which was being implemented by DFID, I think. And another had worked with independent power producers. And the third was working at packages, in the corporate side. But a fourth was coming into it from a background in nutrition. And so all of those experiences were then brought to the classroom, were then brought to our school effectiveness project. Those were the experiences which informed our discussion. I was coming into it from a very different background. So the experience itself is really rich, and we forget how rich because we tend to take the 2 years for granted. And that's across years, and everybody speaks to that. So it's very rich. And the world out there, I mean, it's rich, but you have to struggle to find those experiences. Here, the experiences are just ready, sort of like turning on Netflix and watching something. That's really the sort of experiences that we have. And the second thing is this really, really broad network. And this network is really, really useful. And these may be people that you're fighting with during the 2 years, and you hate her guts, or she hates your guts. But once you graduate, you'll find that those feelings fade. That and I'm sure some of my group members really hated me, but I found that those feelings have faded, right? So now it's just fond memories, and you forget the bad part of it. And it's really not difficult to take advantage of this network in terms of leveraging it, because from the business side, I can't help but think about, all right, what's the end objective here? How do I make use of this network? It either is to find a job or to find a new project or to convert a lead. And so these people that you're dealing with, and it doesn't have to be matlabi, right? You just have to be nice, and it doesn't take much effort to be nice. I mean, just the odd smile every now and then, and just apne kaam se kaam rakho. And people remember you well. And if they remember you well, they will try and help you if you don't ask too much of them. And that's really key, right? So how much can you ask that they can give? And that's your network, basically. And so peers have been phenomenally helpful, both inside the program and outside of it. Even for the work that I'm doing, I've been reaching out to some of my friends to ask them for help, and they've been giving it.
So we're over by quite a bit, and I also see that there might be fatigue also. But let me just say two things. One, I want to thank the three of you for coming and taking the time. I think that's very, very kind of you. All of us are very thankful for that. Second, I will repeat what I said earlier. I mean, I don't know how to express it, but I'm so happy to see where you are right now. Mentally, physically, obviously, but mentally, in terms of where you are, in terms of how you're thinking about things, etc. It makes me immensely happy. Proud is not the word, but happy definitely is the word to see all of you there. And I hope that the journeys of the people who were here are also similar, and they're able to sort of reach even higher heights, because program का मकसद तो यही है ना कि हर बैच जो है अगला वो किसी ने कहा था ना कि I see far because I stand on the shoulder of giants. तो वो giants पहले होते हैं, उसके बाद अगले उस्ताद वो है जिसके कंधे पे शागिर्द चढ़ता है. तो इसी तरह ये बैचेस एक से एक आगे जाएंगे. so very happy to see where you are. And of course, please do stay in touch. Do stay with the people who are now in the program and more who will come along on the same path. आप लोग हमारे लिए, you'll be the trailblazers in that sense. So a very, very big thank you to all of you. And I hope this series, inshallah, we'll continue this, and we'll have you back very soon, inshallah, again to talk about other aspects as well. So thank you so very much, and have a lovely evening. Khuda Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Thank you, Dr. Bari.